Welcome to the Love Inspired Leadership Podcast. We are super thrilled that you are here. And this is really a true place of courage, of heart centered leadership, and creative victory to bring love back to life within your position in your life. And I am super jazzed today. I have a guest, Tamar Routley, and we had just met in the most interesting way. Her father jogs on the same location that I go to every day. And we passed each other for like, I think almost a year. And then we had a chat and we became this, jogging friendship on the gorge here in Victoria, British Columbia. And it turns out that he's had this incredibly fascinating life and this incredible daughter. And that's who's on the podcast today is his daughter. So she's the founder of Podcast Impact Studio. She's super passionate and an advocate for authentic voices. Yes. And she is the producer behind visionary shows. So Tamar's journey from corporate life to empowered entrepreneur is truly a masterclass in saying yes to the power of possibility and unleashing that incredible, radiant, unapologetic courage and guiding others to their own pure breakthrough. Oh, my goodness, Tamar, your story, your energy. We just met this last Saturday in person, and it was an immediate hug. Your dad was there too. And I kind of felt a little sorry for him because you and I were just going at it back and forth, and just so connected. So thank you for making the decision to be on my Love Inspired Leadership and for being such a daring, brave woman to really go after your life. So thank you.
Thank you for having me. And yeah, that visit was amazing. It was incredible to connect in person and also watch my dad just kind of look back and forth like a little kid was amazing.
And what I love that he said, wow, you both really love what you do, don't you? And we both said, yes, we do. Anyway, I loved it. So let's open the door here to our first theme, which is, courageous leaps and purposeful new beginnings. And, can you share the moment that you said yes to actually closing the door on corporate life and stepping into your own victory story?
Absolutely. I have always struggled, like many people, with that financial insecurity, even though I did well in life. And, I'd gotten my life together after getting sober in 2012. But I just remember waking up every morning and being like, ugh, why am I doing this? Like, I didn't feel like there was any purpose in my life. I thought, is this it? Like, is this all I have in store for myself? And so I actually started doing my own things kind of on the side as a side hustle. And then I realized quite quickly that I had the creative bug, just like my dad. And I was really good at creating things. I started building my own website, I started podcasting, and like I wanted more. And for the first time, I felt like I was getting this different kind of buzz, right? Before it was alcohol and now it was creativity. And I just remember probably about a year into my journey, I was getting up at 3:30 a.m. because why wouldn't you? I mean, if you love what you do, you're going to get up earlier so you can just do more. And I was definitely burning the candle from both ends, but I'd started to meet a lot of really cool people in the entrepreneurial world, especially in the sober podcasting world. And I was talking to one of my friends who was a coach, and she's like, Tamar, why are you still working this corporate job? Like, why are you not giving this entrepreneur thing a go? Because you're making friends, connections, you're doing really well. And of course, there was still that little voice in me that was like, oh, but you got to get the paycheck. You got to, and I had done well. I had saved up some money. And the thing that really did it for me is, and I love this, I will never ever forget this, is she looked at me and she said, Tamar, when you quit drinking, did you leave a bottle of vodka in the cupboard just in case you wanted to go back? And that was like a friendly slap.
Yeah.
Like, talk about the lights turning on because I was like, ouch, no. And she goes, so why would you do that here? Because I had thought maybe I'll just take 3 month leave of absence. I'll test, dip my toe in the water, see how it is. And she's like, you can't build a business in 3 months, but you can do it if you put all in. And I actually, the day before was my birthday eve. And because, I love to celebrate my birthday week. And the next day on my birthday, I gave my notice to my corporate jobs and I said, in 3 weeks, I'm out of here. I'm going to try this thing and see how it goes. And I've never looked back. So,
I love it. I love it. And there's that voice within, right? So we either listen to the voice of courage, unapologetic courage, or we listen to the voice of what we think is safety.
mhm.
And like you said, your creativity has soared, and you realize that going through the journey to make the decision, that was part of your juice, that I call it. And you fell in love with this creative process and the experience of that for yourself, and also what you accomplished. So I love it. And there's so many people, maybe some listeners that may be listening to this podcast right now, that you're in a corporate job, that you wake up every day and you think, oh, do I have to work here forever? We're just letting you know you don't. It does take courage, it does take a commitment, and it does take a decision to be all in.
Mhm.
And I love it. So what what is it that has fueled your courage and passion to help others in this beautiful arena of podcasting?
I feel like it's been the support and love of others. I noticed instantly that when I decided to take those first steps into becoming an entrepreneur, I met so many cool people. I would go to different events, and, I'm not that much of an extrovert. I can turn it on when I need to, but I love to be behind the scenes, helping support other people and letting them shine.
Mhm.
But what I found is that I would just have conversations. I would be very open about my story. I remember sitting with a podcaster down in Los Angeles once, and she's like, "Hey, Tamar, how come you're not having a glass of wine?" And I always joke around. I said, "I'm a retired professional." And so as we got to talking, and these conversations with these people go deep. Like, they're not the surfacey conversations that you're just like, "Oh, I don't feel good after that one." Like, you feel good after you leave these conversations. And she just said, you have a voice, you have a story, you need to share that story. And so I started being more open about my lifestyle, who I was as a person. And I never felt like I could do that before because, regardless of how there's this stigma out there, right? There's this story that the world tells us, right, about alcoholism or substance use. And it's not true. But yet I chose to believe that. And that kept me small for so long. And so when I finally overcame that and thought, you know what? That's actually made me who I am. Because when I always, and I tell my clients, when I was doing one-on-one coaching, like, take a second and turn around and look at how much you've overcome. Look how far you've gotten. And you're telling me you can't go a little bit farther? And so for me, it was just surrounding myself by the right people. And they were like my cheerleaders until I could start doing that for other people. right?
Yes.
They're like, I didn't even know what an email opt-in was. I was in a mastermind and she's like, "Hey, Tamar, do you have an email opt-in?" And I'm like, and she goes, "Oh, it's okay, hon. We'll get you one." Right? And it was out of total love and like they helped build me up until I could stand on my own and I had the confidence, right? It takes a village and you have to lean on that. And that's what got me to a point where I was confident to keep going on my own.
It's what I always focus on. Tamar, and you and I have this similar spirit. We are never, ever, ever meant to do this alone.
Hmm.
And, to be on both sides of the giving and the receiving is the greatest gift, because whatever we give, we get to receive
Yeah.
as the giver. And whatever we receive, we get to pay it forward. We
Hmm.
get to hold that incredible space for the next person that comes along. And I love that. And I think it's a skill. This was something that I have been working on the last 5 years too, is in the receiving. I've always been a great giver. It's to just pause and receive and allow, that information, that encouragement, that cheerleading, that support, that guidance, that direction to just enter into who we are. And I think that's just a beautiful thing. I really do love it. So how did pursuing your purpose as you have lead you to breakthroughs that you never imagined? Now, these breakthroughs, I think, are the most fascinating aspect of life I do. And when we go through them, it is such an inspiration, I think. So for you, like, what pursuing this purpose and passion and the breakthroughs that you've gone through, was like?
So purpose has always been a big thing for me since I've started as an entrepreneur. It's kind of that, some people call it your North Star. It's what I focus on and it's the why behind everything I do. If I get an opportunity, I'll ask myself, like, does this align with my purpose? And if it doesn't, it's a hard no. And if it does, it's a hell yes. Um, which sometimes I need to learn to manage, but that's, a topic for a completely different podcast episode. Um, but like that, just that focus and knowing that I wanted to help people. And one of the things that I'm very gifted at, which I found out much later, was that I am really good at being that person who can take that vision, create clarity, and then turn it into momentum, because I believe in people until they start to believe in themselves. And I believe that we are all so much more capable than we think. And that has always just stuck with me, right? When I have a conversation with anybody, I give them that safe space. I let them fully come in. I listen. And then I'll say, would you like some feedback or do you want to brainstorm? Like brainstorming just lights me completely up. And so as I tried new things, because in the beginning, I didn't land on what I wanted to do right away. I just knew that I wanted to help people see what they were capable of. And that's what I focused on. And, I had coaches that would give me things to try, beta programs. I learned how to build websites, podcasting, all this kind of stuff. I started doing coaching and focused on neuroscience and social psychology. So I kind of started to understand like how the brain works. And because I have the gift of gab and also the gift of listening now, which that is definitely was a developed skill, I've been able to create that space for people. And it just evolved into, podcast production, helping people who wanted to create more of an impact in the world. And they're like, I'd kind of like to try being a podcaster. Like, what do you think? And I'm like, let's do it. Right. And it just all starts with a conversation. And so, if I stay focused on my purpose, then I figure I'm always aligned.
Well, and that's when energy flows, where
Mhm.
intention goes. And that's where the vitality of life is. So, for the listeners, it's it's a journey to discover what your purpose is too. It's a curiosity, it's a state of wonder. It's what ignites that internal flame of the reason, the meaning, and the purpose. And I'm so in alignment with who you are. I just love it. And, I have the same purpose to support people to believe in themselves before they believe in themselves, period.
Hmm.
Because we all need to have people that believe in us. So, for the audience, resource those people. It can be a
Yeah.
connection, it can be a community, it can be investing in a, coach, it can be being a part of a mastermind. And we're never meant to do this alone. And there's people that have been down the path before us that have priceless wisdom that they are so willing to share with us. And it's a matter of asking. I've got this new phrase, this little sticky note on my computer here: get your ask on. So, in asking for that support, in asking for that guidance, that information, is being willing to ask and then receive,
Hmm.
right? So, um, let's look at alignment, because that's really what you're talking about, and intention. And the theme of this segment that I love is around the concept of radiant authenticity and sobriety and possibility. So, a lot of social media is talking about authenticity right now. And so, to you, how would you describe radiant authenticity in your spectrum of relationships?
I think, for me, it's about being completely honest about who you are. I got sober back in 2012, so it's 13 and a half years now. I can't believe it. Like, I have to pinch myself sometimes. And the life that has come out of that has been phenomenal. But, for 10 years, there was still a small part of me that I hid about myself, and that was my sexuality. And, I almost got married for a second time. Four and a half years ago. And I did it because I thought, well, maybe I need to fit into this, societal norm. And I don't think I truly believed that, but there was something inside me that was scared of being judged, just like I had when I got sober. But I thought, I've overcome that, and look what that brought me. Why don't I become completely authentic? And of 10 years of sobriety and not talking about it because I was terrified, right? The world is not always a nice place. And I think my world, when I finally admitted that, it was like this huge weight lifted off my shoulders. Because, first of all, I met the love of my life. She is the most amazing human being on the face of the planet. And I don't say that lightly. And second of all, like, I feel like I'm the real me for the first time
Mm,
ever. And I think that comes out in the connections that I make with other people because I want people to be real, right? There's so many people that are afraid of being judged for who they are, and that keeps us small, right? And I don't want to think small anymore. I mean, the fact that I've been able to be completely authentic and this is who I am, you can like me or not. Um, it's served me well so far. I mean, it has opened the doors to possibilities that I never thought possible. My brain, it's almost like my brain was kind of like it was turned up a little bit and I was excited and I was moving and having fun, but it's almost like it cranked up the energy to a level that I have never had before. I mean, when we were talking this weekend, I was telling you about, I'd got a little taste of what it could be to create an app that would save time and sort my brain out. And I built two apps over a weekend. And I was so pumped and so jacked up. And I'm like, okay, I never thought I could do this before. So it's almost like, when you become authentic, you open the floodgates to what is actually possible.
Mm-mm, 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 mm. So just let that settle in just for a moment. And I the mission that I'm on for within myself is to live my life as who I am. And that is providing a lot of permission, a lot of space for grace, and a lot of release of the old limited thinking and beliefs about myself from the past.
Hmm.
So you have made a decision. I call it thinking above the line in my signature process. You made a decision to be curious, open minded, trusting, and with a state of wonder. How good can it really get here? Wow. Okay, I have that experience. Okay, that was great. And it continues to evolve, which is what you're explaining here too, Tamar. And so I want to invite the audience to realize that this is completely available to you too. And it's cleaning up. We all know the things. It could be alcohol, it could be self-criticism, it could be what I call thinking below the line, in doubt, fear, resentment, anger, regret. The line is the line of decision, but it's also acceptance and forgiveness. Because in order for us to be who we are and give ourselves permission, that's when the door swings wide open and we take a position of compassion instead of criticism. We take a position of forgiveness rather than judgment. We take a position for joy rather than pain. You loved creating those apps
Hmm.
this last weekend. I know you did. And that creativity was flowing through your veins, your brain, and your soul out of really contributing to people's lives and making
Hmm.
a difference. And so I just commend you for tapping into that power of possibility, is what I call it, which is thinking, living, and leading above the line, which is honoring who we are. We are totally enough. We're more than enough. And once you start getting this evidence and clues, that's when the inspiration soars. And I think that's when vitality happens. So, can you share a story where, either personally or professionally, that you opened yourself up to this unexpected success within, let's just choose podcasting? You have lots of stories with podcasting. So, and I just think that this is a world that you know intimately well in supporting people on their own journeys. So, um, where did you say yes there? And then you were like, really had unexpected success with podcasting.
Well, so I was doing it sort of like a hobby at first. I wasn't getting paid to do it. I wasn't, I was editing my own stuff. And then I remember during the pandemic, my podcast coach, because he also believes in creating community, he, emailed me one day and said, "Hey, just so you know, tomorrow there's this awesome person here. You got to meet her. She's sober too." Right. And this is also one of those things why hiding things can actually hinder you from things and keep you small. Whereas if you're open about certain things, then it's amazing what can come out of that, the connections that can be built. And so, I had met this woman and we became really good friends. And then she actually introduced me to a woman who started a sober lifestyle magazine online called The Sober Curator. And we met, and the first time we met, we became like super, super close. We had talked about our love for the Goonies movie, which, is back in the 80s. And we're like, okay, yeah, we were definitely sisters at one point. Like we had to be. And so I started, I became a sober curator. I started writing for the magazine, and she was kind of seeing what I was doing. And then she actually started with a company who I have a full-time contract with now. She started working for them, and she's like, "Do you want to become a podcast producer?" And at the time, because I had only been doing coaching and kind of dabbling in the podcasting world, she saw the possibility. She saw my creativity, and she's like, "Yeah, come join us." And I was like, "Seriously?" And she goes, "Yep, come down to Seattle. I'll introduce you to the team." And this company does a lot of personal development stuff, which I'm all about now. Like, give me more. It's like the more learning I get, that is fuel for me. And so they were all about that. And they said, "You know what? You'll grow into this role." And that gave me the opportunity to what we call paid to practice. And so, it started off with being told, well, you might work 5 to 20 hours to start. In 3 days, I was full time, right? We had all these ideas and all these projects because I wasn't afraid to share what I could do. I finally stepped into my role and what I had been playing with for 2 years and said, well, you know what I can do. And I didn't even know where it came from. Like after it came out of my mouth, I'm like, oh, I actually had the confidence to share this stuff. And they're like, great. And so since then, there's just been more and more and more. And it's feeding that creativity and that learning bug that I have because that desire is just there. And so I became a podcaster. And it just things, I started getting referrals and people started coming to me and saying, well, hey, can you help me do a podcast? And then, I have my business. I incorporated last year finally. And it's just like, it's incredible. Like, I love being able to be somebody else's cheerleader now and be kind of in the background and encouraging them. And some of the people I work with, like, they never thought they could be podcasters. And I just create this fun environment for them that they're like, this is actually really cool. And yeah, so I still pinch myself that there's never a morning that I wake up that I'm like, I would rather sleep in. If anything, it's the opposite way, which my wife is not crazy about, because the 2:30 a.m.s and 3:30 a.m.s happen quite frequently. But there's never a day anymore that I want to sleep in and not work because it's so cool.
Well, isn't that a wonderful thing?
Hmm.
You came on here talking about corporate going, oh, and now this vitality and creativity and juice, goes through your veins of the eagerness to create. See, creativity is such an incredible energy to tap into. And so I'm curious about this. So, what daily practices or mindsets do you follow that fuel your momentum and uh, confront some of the fears that you may have going on?
Hmm. So for me right now, it's all about rest because as someone who's highly motivated and, I can get lost. I can get lost in the work and work a ton, but I always have to remember that I'm going to be more productive when I rest. It's been all about, waking up every day. I actually spend a half an hour with my wife just having coffee, before I would jump out of bed and go and sit behind my desk and then get ready later. But no, it's let's grab a coffee, let's chat, we'll start our day, right? I need connection. That's the first thing. And then, after I've eaten what hopefully is a good breakfast, I will sit down and do a gratitude list, 3 things I'm grateful for. And I've done that for, you know, since I got sober, so almost 14 years now. And I can't say enough about it. It totally changes the way you look at your day. And I need that sometimes. And then after that, I try to, especially lately, is take a few minutes to just go and meditate. I do struggle with meditation, so I follow guided meditation. And I also decided to get a little walking pad under my
Wow.
stand-up desk because with what I do, there's a lot of time where I'm listening to recordings or I'm in a, recording session and I'm just like, okay, I'm sitting here, but I could be walking. And so just that active during the day, getting up, standing up, that has been amazing. And then lately I have had to set myself some boundaries that at 5 o'clock I'm done. I shut off my computer, and that's really hard for me, Carolyn. Like, I still struggle with it because I'm looking at the clock going, oh man, it's 4:30. I only have half an hour left. But it does help me rest. And when I'm rested the next morning, I just feel so much better. And, I try and pick a book that a lot of times I'll actually purchase it and something I want to learn. I've been reading Made to Stick lately, but I also listen to it. So I'll like be highlighting as I'm listening. And I find that as long as I'm learning something every day, it keeps my brain incredibly stimulated.
Yeah. And I love that you're focusing on gratitude. I
Hmm.
heard a new phrase within the last few days that I'm daily presenting to myself, that gratitude is the magnet of joy.
Yeah.
Isn't that beautiful? Oh, I
So,
just love that. And I do a similar morning practice with gratitude, and it grounds me for the whole day to be in this space of appreciation. And that is above the line to me.
hmm
And just this graciousness of gratitude in what is, and also being grateful for what can be. So it's holding that space of gratitude in regards to the future too.
hmm
I love it. And what favorite story of seeing someone that you've helped step into their own victory do you have?
It was actually my very first client. She was in the mastermind where I didn't even know what an email opt-in was, and she lives in St. Louis. And I remember we got to know each other throughout, we'd meet once a month. And an incredible woman. She's from Kenya, moved to the States quite a long time ago. She was a nurse, but she knew she wanted to do something different. And she said, Tamar, I've been watching you. I want you to be my coach. And I said, well, I'm not a coach. And she said, I don't care. She said, I'm watching your journey. I'm listening to the things you're doing because this mastermind, we would, make a plan for the next 30 days and then we'd share what we'd done. And the same thing is with the app, right? I just developed this knack for I'm going to try something and figure it out on my own. So I was sharing that with everybody else so they could learn how to do stuff in that mastermind. And so she said, I want to learn how to function like you do. I'm passionate about, I want to build a turmeric tea business and I want to help other people who have, autoimmune issues because I've overcome it. And so I thought, okay, this can't go horribly wrong. And I mean, it could, but there's
It
two
could
of
go
us here.
wonderfully right too.
Exactly. But back then I was not really sure of myself.
Yeah.
And so I thought, you know what, why not? She's amazing. I love connection, so let's just go for it. Well, in the first year, we really worked on her sleep, her routine, because I told her you can't keep functioning off of 15 hours of sleep a week. So I would call her and say, are you going to have a nap today? Right. And we started with these small things, and it just had come to me like, don't start big. You got to start the lifestyle, right? And so she did that. She listened to every single thing I said, and it was so basic in the beginning. But then she's like, tomorrow I want to write a book. And I'm like, let's do it. And so I took a book, I published my first book, and then we just repeated the steps for hers. And it was so funny because she wasn't good with computers. She couldn't type. And I remember her coming up to me saying, Tamar, I type with two fingers. How am I going to write a book? And I said, well, why don't you do voice to text? And she said, it doesn't understand my accent. And I said, well, let's do it together. And she just plugged away and she published her first book. It became, an Amazon bestseller, which is really cool for her. She has her own turmeric tea company today, and she's going to expand by getting her own kitchen. And it was all just from her coming to me, betting on me, even though I wasn't anywhere qualified, or I should say certified to do this. Qualified, yes. I had a ton of experience with life, and that's all I gave forward. I gave freely what was given to me, which was my time and attention. And so I don't do one-on-one coaching today, but she's like, Tamar, you're still my coach. I'll just wait till you have time. And it's developed into an amazing friendship. She came to my wedding. That was the first time we met in person, and
Wow.
everybody loved her. Like it just her new life and what she created for herself radiates out of her every day. So it's a similar story to mine, and it gives me goosebumps as I talk about
Yes.
her because she's an incredible woman and she's doing amazing things because she bet on herself for a change.
And she elevated her ask. She got
Hmm.
her ask on, and she asked you for support.
Yeah.
So that's the message of this podcast for the listeners that are out there. There is people around you right now that can support you and guide you in those big dreams that you have percolating inside your soul. Give yourself permission to ask and put your ask on and invite the support. Oh, I love it. And turmeric tea, I'm going to have to find out about that. That sounds very delicious to me. I love my
Hmm.
teas. So let's close here with reflecting on legacy, because I think each of us, you're living yours right now, Tamar. I'm living mine, but each of us have this incredible opportunity to unleash this living legacy with our voice, with our purpose, and with our passions in being exactly authentically who we are. So, what would you say your living legacy is for people?
I just want people to have the belief in themselves that they're capable of so much more. And I try to bring that into the work I do every single day, into every conversation that I have with people. I work on really building that connection, that safe space, so that they can believe in that. I thought about it actually. A friend of mine and I were talking about that recently, about like, what's your legacy? What do you want people to remember of you? And I want people to remember, like, if she could do it, I could do it.
That's so beautiful. And so your journey proves that when we choose to dare greatly, as Brene Brown says, we give ourselves permission and other people to shine too. And, victory is not just one single moment, it is a way of living boldly with unapologetic courage and a commitment to be what I believe is a love inspired leader within ourselves. And you supported that beautiful, beautiful woman. I'm going to remember that story for a long time, I think, in regards to the daily disciplines on how she can honor herself. And you supported her through the wisdom you've had the opportunity of learning from other people to navigate and manage your days. And then you brought in next pieces, her next steps, to keep supporting her, to build that momentum and keep moving forward. And to me, she is a true love inspired leader too. So thank you for who you are, honestly, and for sharing with us with such truth, authenticity, and what I would classify as vibrant courage and creativity. So, for the audience, how can they connect with you if they're ready to amplify their own story and unlock, their breakthroughs? How do they connect with you?
They can check out our website. It's podcastimpactstudio.com, or they can email me direct, Tamar at podcastimpactstudio.com. And then I'm just Tamar Routley on social.
Perfect. So connect on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook for the audience. And if you were inspired, which I know you were from this podcast interview, share with us when this comes out. What was it that that really hit home for you, that had an impact in your own love inspired self leadership journey. And I want to let you know that I am providing my gift once again, the 21-day sacred insight journey of living, leading above the line. So receive that as my gift. And, I just really have this last question for our audience. Where will you unleash your creative power and victories this week? So, what will you open up? What doors of the power of possibility will you be curious about? And who's waiting for the courage in your story? Thank you, Tamar. I appreciate you being on my podcast, and I respect and honor who you are.
Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure and an honor to be here with you today.
Thanks.